From the kitchen of the cabin, a look at the games that made us who we are in Ben and Steve's Advent Calendar.
Well then, we're really plugging away at this list of Ben and Steve 2022 Advent Calendar. Steve,
I love the way that you just don't know what the title of this bloody podcast is. It's very easy. Ben and Steve's Board Game Advent Calendar. It's very bloody easy.
Ben and Steve's Board Game Advent Calendar, Steve, I think is what you called it last time.
That's right.
Yeah, and we keep coming back to the recording studio day in and day out because this is our Christmas gift to the listeners. And
do you think every morning when they wake up and they see another bloody 5 Games for Doomsday podcast in their feed, they're thinking, oh, thank you for this Christmas present. That's really what I wanted. Are we the socks of Christmas podcasts?
Who else is going to get them through the cold, dark Christmas months?
It's not going to be bloody rest is history, is it? They're probably having a 3-week break now. The World Cup's over or something.
I have no doubt, even though they've been doing like a podcast a day for like the last 6 months. But anyway, we are the ones doing that in the board game world. And that's why everyone is going to go to their Patreon account right now and double their pledge.
Yeah, that's right. It's Christmas, Steve. Stop shilling. It's Christmas.
I can't, Ben. I can't. I'm an American and I'm in America. Can you imagine? Like,
that's very true.
I'm an American.
You must be feeling very shilly right now.
In America at Christmas time. It's just like, it has this like multiplier effect on me. I can't help shilling. What are we going to talk about today, Ben? We have another game that you claim that I've played, but I don't remember it. We have played a version of it, and that version of that game, which I don't want to spoil the surprise. I used to play this in the 90s in my board game club, and we talk about humor in games. I always thought this game was hilarious, and yet it works. It's fun and it's different. It's not a Euro game. It's not an Ameritrash game. It's its own thing, and I want to hear you tell us what it is.
Well, it's not the game that you're talking about. It's a different version. It's the card game version.
Have I spoiled the whole episode?
Yeah, you completely ruined it. Good job. The reason it's not in print anymore is because Fantasy Flight lost the license for their Games Workshop games. And this is the reason I chosen this one is because it was the first game, I think, that I came out and said, this is my number one game. This is my favorite game. This is the game I am willing to nail my colors to.
$48 like new on Board Game Geek Market.
It is so wonderful. It is such good fun. And it's essentially a Take That game, but it implements Take That in such a funny, characterful, interesting way. And this is Blood Bowl Team Manager. And I always had an affection, because as I spoke about before a few days ago, I have a real affection for orcs. And what Blood Bowl is the funny sides.
Would you say you have a fetish for orcs, Ben?
I want to fuck orcs, yeah. I'd love to just go to an orc party and just like an orc orgy.
Yeah, you have orcophilia.
Exactly. And the thing is, what Blood Bowl is that sort of aspect of the so I think Games Workshop is sort of on one side very kind of pompous, and on the other side sort of anarchically funny, and Blood Bowl is that side, and it's the side that I enjoy. And the thing is, what's so funny about orcs is that they're very British. It's a very British kind of characterization, and it's really funny. I sometimes watch 40k videos on YouTube, and it's a lot of American people, and the way they kind of talk about orcs and they do orc impressions, it's very funny. And I'm not sure Americans kind of realize the orcs is called a kind of archetypal British yobs, football hooligan types. And Blood Bowl Team Manager is not just about orcs, by the way. Although I think that aspect of Blood Bowl is mining that furrow of humour. But more than that, Blood Bowl Team Manager is a really solid card game that gives you loads of options, that is full of character, and it's full of tactics, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's simple and yet really engaging. And just talking about it makes me want to play it again. It's such a good game.
So why the card game and not the board game where you're rolling dice and throwing a football around?
Well, for a number of reasons. Firstly, Blood Bowl Team Manager was the game I bought when I was getting into games. And as I say, it was the first game that I said, this is my favourite game. And secondly, Blood Bowl it's difficult. It's a difficult game. Firstly, it's a 2-player game. Secondly, there's a lot of rules overhead. It's very much a kind of, even though there are new versions, it's very much an 80s game design. There's a lot of dice rolling and there's not a lot of decision making. Although people are going to go nuts. I apologise to all the Blood Bowl people listening to this. But Blood Bowl Team Manager is a modern board game. It's a modern game made with modern sensibilities, and it is a really cracking good game. And while we've played Blood Bowl together, and it's loads of fun,
like up to date.
No, the thing is, it's not Blood Bowl. It's you're going over a season, and so it has that sort of dealing with your team and managing those aspects and trying to bring money in and encourage fans to support your team. And so it's far from being a Euro game, but it is a modern board game with modern board game sensibilities and modern board game tactics, and that makes it really good fun, I think, but also a real sort of rigorous challenge.
Okay, so far it seems like you have a very intellectual approach to describing this game, but like, what did this game make you feel when you first played it?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Right. So what's fascinating is that I think criticism is this. If I'm going to remain intellectual for a second, I think criticism, when you read people's reviews of things or people's critiques of things, what they're doing is retrofitting an intellectual justification for how they felt, right? And I think especially with games, it's games operate in a sense, in the same way that music does, that's kind of non-linguistic. Writing about them will always kind of be a compromise, and you're never really evoking what the games really are. But this one, again, I was drawn to it because of those old Warhammer days when I was sort of 14. And I heard an interview on the Dice Tower with a designer, and he talked about it, and he said it was probably his favourite game he'd ever designed. And then I bought it, and I just thought it was what you want. So it was exciting, it was interactive, but there was a proper game there. It wasn't just pulling the pigtails of the person in front of you or whatever. That's a terrible analogy, but it was it wasn't sort of this arcane, cold, difficult German Euro game, but it also wasn't just a random, overly long Ameritrash game either. It felt like it encompassed both of them. And there was something about this game that made me want to say to people, this is my favourite game, we should sit down and play it. And even though it's not my favourite game anymore, those old games that that helped you discover this thing, they hold a lot of weight, I think, when you're thinking about the things you love.
Apropos of nothing, but as you know, I am an erstwhile Shakespeare scholar, and back when I was trying to write about Shakespeare and having a hard time coming up with something original to say, I could sit down and read a play over and over again and not really feel anything anymore. I'm sure that the first time you read something, you feel something, maybe the first few times, but eventually it sort of became like a dry intellectual exercise. I was always going on an expedition, straining to find some kind of matter I could do something with. But I don't think I ever have this experience with games. I can't imagine having that kind of intellectual engagement with a board game. Maybe this is what it's like when you're playtesting them. I'm not sure, but you always feel something. Otherwise, why are you doing it? It's it would be a very deadening kind of enterprise. And we're looking for games that make us have this feeling, that sort of sense of panic and urgency and impatience and excitement and disappointment. every single time, even if it's a game you've played over and over and over again. I think once you've read a play or a novel several times, I would guess that effect is lessened. And yet, because of the nature of the game as the work of art, it just operates differently. It functions differently. I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on a tangent here. Is there something to what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, sure. But I think it's interesting, isn't it, that the more you get into something, the kind of more inured you are to it. So it's very rare now. I remember when I first got into games, I would sit there playing a game and I would say, my God, I love this game. Because I was just so excited. I was discovering this new thing, and that, kind of doesn't happen as much anymore. And a game is really exceptional when you come out of it feeling that feeling that you had when you first got into this new thing, right? So it's inevitable. The more you get into something, the kind of more burnt out you get on it, and the less you sort of hold it, the less exciting it becomes. But nevertheless, the reason I still continue to play games is because I get a deep satisfaction from them, and then occasionally excitement. And Blood Bowl Team Manager was one of those games where I not only bought it, but I bought all the expansions and I sleeved all the cards. And so my copy is kind of pristine.
You still have all that stuff.
I still have all that stuff, and it's a game I need to get out again and play again, I think.
All right, well, tell me, Ben, by way of conclusion, why are we going to play Blood Bowl Team Manager together this holiday season?
Because in spite of your desire to control everything, in spite of your desire to not be sort of picked on, we're going to sit down and we're going to play Blood Bowl Team Manager, and you're going to have no control, and you're going to feel like people are ganging up on you throughout the whole game, but you're going to come away from it at the end saying, that was fun, and that was a genuinely satisfying experience. Thank you for listening to this show and indulging our overweening nostalgia. If you would like to support the show, you can do that by going to patreon.com/5G4D. And we both wish you a very Merry Christmas.